Hello everyone and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, and today we are going to do our tier list video. We're going to jump right into what I think are the S tier decks momentarily, but before we get there, I just want to let you know that this is video 1 of 2 of today. Later this week, actually Monday I believe, the new game mode High Voltage Overdrive comes out. I've got the designer of that mode, an interview for the designer of that mode coming out later today at about Daily Reset, so if you're interested in learning early on about the new High Voltage Overdrive mode, make sure you check out that video at Daily Reset. Without further ado though, the first deck in the S tier is the Cannonball Mercury Fenris Wolf deck. This is the 1k and best hit rank 1 with. It is an Ika design deck, and it is absolutely everywhere. It is still one of the most played decks in the game with a very high win rate and extremely high consistency. You can find Ika at twitch.tv/Ika_MTS. You're going to see Ika like 3 times in this video. He's absolutely on fire, and the person who popularized this deck was KMBest. You can find him at twitch.tv/KMBestMS. This deck needs Cannonball, Mercury, Kate, Wiccan, Merlin, Fenris, and Gladiator. It's an expensive one. I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. It just is. If you don't have Goliath, I think you're actually probably fine running Enchantress. You should be totally okay to run sort of another tech card in that spot. Red Guardian can be Rogue or Copycat without you losing too very much. If you need an alternate version, we covered this version in great detail in yesterday's video, so I didn't want to break it down for you again in the exact same detail, but Crazy is rank number 1 with a fairly similar build. Is this build the same? No, but it does enough of the same stuff, right? If you look, instead of running a Wiccan package, it's running a Mill package, right? So it's Wiccan versus Mill, but the heart and core of the deck is sort of running Fenris Wolf, Cannonball, Mercury, and Gladiator, and along with Merlin, and then seeing what you can build along those lines. There's like, I don't know, a million decks in the meta right now that are fundamentally trying to do different things with that core. This is meant to be representative of all of those ideas. KM Best, with the rank 1 list, here is what is the logic. Quicksilver is here because it gives you 1 to play for Wiccan. That is obviously very useful in a Wiccan list. Then you need 2-drops, right? 2-drops are sort of the key spot. You've got the 1, now you need something to do it too, so we run 4 2-drops. You don't always have a 3, and what this deck does is it uses Hawkeye and Merlin to say if I have 2 2s, I can play either Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, or Merlin as a 2, and then I have that extra 1-drop for turn 3, right? So now I can play that with Fenris Wolf, that with Mercury on the next turn, or play Mercury and one of Kate's arrows, for example. And that gets me my Wiccan curve, keeps that curve alive, and means I don't have to just blow a Red Guardian or a Negasonic for no reason as well. Mercury is here because of Cannonball. Mercury with Cannonball is absurdly powerful. It is a Shang-Chi where the character doesn't have to be 10 or more power, although Shang will hit everything. It ends up being 8 power in that lane. Mercury can move, so you can play it early, but beware of Red Guardian. And especially after Wiccan, you can spend your last turn just going Cannonball and Mercury for a guaranteed kill. Those 2 cards, that guaranteed kill, means that you run Fenris Wolf, because Fenris Wolf gets back the most powerful thing your opponent killed. Keep in mind, however, that Fenris Wolf will not interact with ongoing cards in the way you want. So if Gore is the most powerful card you killed, you're not going to get Gore back because Fenris Wolf is going to see that as a -1. It'll instead pull back like even a 2 or 3 power card over that. So keep that in mind, but it's still an incredibly powerful combination. Next up, we've got a little bit more about Merlin's use case here. So Merlin has 1 spell that changes locations, obviously very, very useful, turning him into a reasonable threat in terms of power. He can be a 2/5, 2/7. You love to see those stats on your side of the board. But the other thing he does is he can use a card that you've already used, notably Quicksilver, Kate Bishop, or her arrows, and turn them into even more powerful cards. Used up Negasonic to become a more powerful card is really good. And she can be used on Quicksilver and Kate's arrows to give you extra energy. So Merlin is an extremely useful toolbox piece for this list. Red Guardian is an answer card. Everyone right now is running a ton of the Mercury Cannonball stuff, so Red Guardian is one of your best answers to that if your opponent doesn't play smart. Gladiator gives you an extra chance at a kill. Gladiator and Shang-Chi are both extra kills for your Fenris Wolf, while Gladiator is also just really, really good stats. Almost the best stats in the deck, despite being only 3 cost. Shang-Chi, power must be controlled, and gives you some benefit with Fenris. You can really see Cannonball. You don't see Cannonball, Shang does a job. Also, sometimes your opponent will have 2 or 3 really big things in a lane, and Shang gives you playability there. Wiccan lets you play whatever you want and really pulls the deck together. Cannonball is that kill card, but you don't have to kill if you've got so much power in one lane. Let's say you've got one lane, we've got like a 7 power Merlin, a Gladiator, and I don't know, whatever other nonsense, right? Cannonball can still push it into that lane and you can still win. Other options there are like, let's say you've got one lane where you've clogged them using the acid arrow, and you're already ahead in that lane. Cannonball will then win the other lane by pushing out whatever their highest power thing is and adding 8. Alliath is the final card in the deck. It is your last control piece. There is a little counter synergy with Allies because you do want to throw a prio for Shang and Cannonball, but sometimes you're going to have prio, right? It's a thing that happens. When you do, Alliath shuts down the opponent's game plan. So one version or another of this is kind of the meta deck. We will find the right version, but it's already in the S tier. It's just not like when Thanos was the very best. The S tier was far and away just Thanos decks and things that were good into Thanos decks. We're not quite there yet, but this is still a very strong list. Turn 1, you want Quicksilver. Turn 2, Kate or Merlin, if a 3 is needed. Fenris or Mercury are otherwise fine. Turn 3, Gladiator Negasonic, or 2+1. Turn 4, Wiccan, who is a snap condition. You'll see throughout this, most words of turn by turn are written in yellow. If it's written in white, that means it's going to be a, like, almost always snap condition. And if it's written in green, it's going to be a conditional snap condition, and I will do my best to shout out what that condition is. Wiccan is generally better than a 2+2. You can also drop a 3+1, thanks to, like, a Kate or Merlin. Turn 5, if you played Wiccan, you can go Alliath or a control card. You can also go a 3 plus Fenris or Mercury, in general. If you can Cannonball Mercury and trigger Fenris Wolf at the end, you're probably snapping. You can also just drop Alliath cold there. Or Shang cold there, as the case may be. This is, I think, the heart of the meta is sort of trying to figure out how to deal with the Mercury Cannonball combo and what different packages are around it. Before we go any further, if you enjoy that type of deck breakdown, we do that for 3 decks a day at the very least, usually 4 decks, 4 brand new decks every single day here on the channel. We're going to do 10 full deck guides here in this video. I think actually we're going to do 11 full deck guides because we do have one for your weekend mission deck. So if you're interested, please hit that sub, like, and comment. It would really help if you supported this channel. Next up, we've got the Thanos Mercury list, Thanos Fenris Wolf list. It's really the Thanos Strange Supreme control list. It got a new control piece, right? That deck really struggled. Sizer did an amazing job with bounce and move bounce. Sorry, with move and move bounce of absolutely wrecking Thanos, including control Thanos. Mercury alone turns into a plus matchup, but then you add Mercury and Cannonball, and you have that little package of Mercury, Cannonball, and Fenris that's so strong. Shang-Chi obviously offers you another kill card, and then, of course, you have the sheer power of Strange Supreme being run with a Thanos list. This is a tourney deck. There's a bunch of different versions of this within 2 or 3 cards. They all run, right now, some of them don't bother with Fenris, but most do. Some of them don't bother with Copycat, some of them don't bother with Mobius, some of them throw in a Alliath in for an Enchantress. This deck needs Thanos, Strange Supreme, Cannonball, and Mercury. I don't actually know if you need Fenris. I think if you wanted to replace Fenris with a Gladiator, or even a good 2-drop like a Shadow King, I think you would be totally fine. Mockingbird can be Sasquatch, Copycat can be Gladiator or Negasonic Teenage Warhead, and Wiccan can be Hope Summers or Luna Snow. You do want to ramp here. Strange Supreme plays as a 2/11. It's worth remembering that he is not 50 power, despite that he often represents that in a lane. That power he gets comes from other places, and it's worth keeping that in mind. He is very strong and very consistent, but he is not he is very strong and very consistent, but he's not unbeatable because he is taking power from elsewhere. Try and use that to your advantage. He is, however, still great. Mercury is a move counter. Again, this is a very counter-heavy deck. That also makes Cannonball a perfect kill card. Because you have Cannonball, Fenris Wolf is great. Cosmo is here largely to protect your Strange Supreme. Very, very powerful combo. Also, not a terrible idea to play Cosmo on top of Mercury if you know you're going to want to Cannonball elsewhere. Mobius gives you play into stuff like Negative and a bunch of other powerful decks where it's really hard to counter and can win you the game, beating Destroy, so on. Copycat is a general good stuff card. It is here because it's powerful. It has no specific use in this list. It is the most replaceable card. Shang and Enchantress are your control cards. This is fundamentally a control list. It uses Strange Supreme, Mockingbird, Thanos for its power, and then almost everything else it does is control. Blowing things up, taking away its ongoings are very strong. Wiccan gives you the energy to play your power and control cards together. Cannonball is here largely for that Mercury play, but you could also, like, Cannonball's just really solid here. Alliath used to be on this list, or versions of this list. What Cannonball Ultimate lets you do is if you have like this one stupid lane with like Thanos and Mockingbird and stuff, Cannonball can easily just like say I win another lane, and that's super strong. Mockingbird is a cheap 9, not as cheap as she would be if you don't run Strange Supreme, but you like access to Mockingbird if you don't see Strange Supreme, and even then having like a 3 or 4 9 is really good. And then Thanos is a 5/12 that often can't be destroyed and can be played anywhere, and he gives you a bunch of stones that draw, and he gives you food for Strange Supreme, so he's incredible. Turn 1, you want to draw. Turn 2, Strange over draw Fenris or Mercury, and it's kind of depending on your hand. You want to make sure you're using all your energy so you can keep your Wiccan Curve alive, but if you have 2 draws, you can do that. Otherwise, you're going to go Fenris or Mercury. Turn 3, Mobius or Copycat, depending. That's also fine as a 2+1. So sometimes a 2+1 is every bit as good. If you had to play Fenris or Mercury there, now you're going to be able to like play a different 2 and draw a card. From here on out, you Mockingbird as she fits, and your Mockingbird has so much extra power fairly often that it can be a snap condition. Turn 4 is Wiccan over earlier plays. Turn 5, Thanos or Shang/Enchantress, and then turn 6, control cards, Shang Enchantress, Cosmo, etc., or Cannonball. This is still one of the best lists. It's been a little less played, but it is absolutely a monster. Feel free to mix and match a few spots. And then, again, no one likes to play lists right after they've been nerfed. They feel significantly weaker. But the caveat there is even though they feel significantly weaker, they're not always that much worse into the wider metagame. That's an example of how this list works out. That's it for the S tier. We're now down to the A tier, which we're going to kick off with Roram's Arishem Thanos 34-card Monty list. This is the one that he won Golden Gauntlet 2 with. It's an incredible, incredible deck. Super powerful. You can find Roram at twitch.tv/RoramPlays. This needs Arishem, Thanos, and Galacta. Agamotto and Legion can be Vision and Claw. Alioth can be Nick Fury. Mockingbird can be She-Hulk. Valentina can be Iron Patriot or Cable. And Surge can be Quinjet. Before we talk about each card, I just want to let you know this card is almost certainly in S tier, except that all of a sudden, Cassandra Nova is showing up all over the place, and Cassandra Nova is absolutely insane into this list. I'm seeing like even Cassandra Nova and Frigga, Cassandra Nova and Nico from multiple Cassandra Novas. Yes, you can potentially answer that with Shang-Chi, but you've got 34 cards. You're not super likely to draw Shang-Chi. And thus, this list is still great, but it has a hard meta answer. Surge is here just because getting things cheaper, even generic cards, is so strong. It's not especially important, but it is nice to have. Valentina is amazing in Arishem lists because you can play her on 2, and then because you have 4 energy on turn 3, you can play that Valentina card right away before they can Mobius. Juggernaut is a way to steal lanes on the cheap and really mess with opponents. Shang and Enchantress are your 2 big control cards, same as always. Power and ongoing control is good. Galacta is genuinely a ton of power. You do run a lot of control cards that don't have that much power, and Galacta helps you get enough power to really compete. Galacta on 3 is utterly insane. Legion gives you a ton of scam in Arishem because you can play it on turn 4, which means locations like the Kiln become auto-win. Agamotto is here largely for the spell that draws Agamotto. Having a 5/13 that you can play on turn 4 is insane power. The other spells are nice. In particular, Images of Icon can also hit some really, really powerful stuff here, and having extra energy when you have all these random cards in hand is often a huge boon. Alioth is another control card. You can play it on turn 5 or turn 6. Some decks really need their turn 5, and being able to Alioth there is crazy. Mockingbird is almost always cheap or free because you have all these generated cards. Thanos gives you extra generated cards that help you draw into what you're actually trying to see. And in hand, he is a 6/12, which means you can play him on turn 5. That's a lot of stats, guaranteed to be able to play it on turn 5. Plus, sometimes he can't be destroyed. Sometimes he can be played on turn 4, and sometimes he can be played into any location. Finally, we have Arishem, who gives you extra energy, and that extra energy is how you actually do all this stuff. This is the Golden Gauntlet winner. The turn-by-turn here is a little bit silly, because with this 34-card list, you're not super likely to see a clear turn-by-turn. Turn 1 is draw cards, and if you're drawing a lot turn 1, you can consider snapping. If you Mind Stone and get 2 draw cards, or even 1 draw card, you can consider snapping, because now you're doing so much more powerful stuff than if you don't. You can also play other generated cards, or just pass. Turn 2, Valentina over Surge is the general play. If you have Galacta in hand, maybe you play Surge first, but generally speaking, you want to get Valentina down. Turn 3, Galacta or Mockingbird are both very, very powerful plays. I tend to want to get Galacta down, who can be a snap if I can sort of tell what my opponent's likely power output is. If not, I can always drop Mockingbird, and if not, you're going to generate stuff. Turn 4, you want Legion if there's a clear location that either benefits you or harms your opponent. Play it now. You can also save Legion for later for scam. You can drop Agamotto or Thanos here. Turn 5 is Alioth Thanos for control cards. If you can blow something of theirs up, chain Kalo, big ongoing, you want to snap that. If you can drop a Thanos or an Alioth to ruin them, do that. Turn 6 is fundamentally the same as turn 5, and then you win the game. This won Marvel Snap's biggest tournament. It is an amazing deck. A lot of people have been complaining about this list, saying that this is like the scourge of the meta. I think Arishem is very good. But I don't think Arishem is close to a meta card without the power of starting with a 6/12 in hand and having a bunch of extra draw cards that it can grab. I think Thanos is what pushes it to the top. Thanos is also an S tier. I think Thanos remains one of the very best cards in Marvel Snap, even if he is a little bit weaker than he was in his heyday a few weeks ago. We host regular small tournaments on our Discord called King of the Hill tournaments. If you're interested, the Discord is linked in the description to this video. From here, we're going to go with Thanos ongoing. This is, I didn't bother to change the version. Some versions run Ant-Man, some versions run Chimera, some versions run random other cards. It doesn't really matter. There's a few swing spots we'll get to, but I think this list is still really good and severely underrated. The only thing holding it back is that there's still just enough Killmonger to make me a little uncomfortable with it. Plus, the stupid cannonball thing with Mercury is annoying. You can find Eggy at twitch.tv/121Eggy. I think Eggy also broke Galactus. We'll do a video about that tomorrow morning, so if you're curious about that, make sure you ring that notification bell so you don't miss it. This deck needs Thanos, Goliath, Sam Wilson, and Mockingbird. Those 4 are your required cards. Wiccan can be Luna, Phosphorus, or Hope. Hankara can be Armor or Ant-Man. If you feel like you need the protection, go Armor, if not Ant-Man. So this list is ultimately about its scalars. This is Honifer's version. It's a little older now, but if you'd like to play this version, feel free. It puts up more points than the previous version at the expense of a slightly worse curve and slightly more vulnerability to other cards. But Carter, Captain America, and Speed are all powerful cards in this archetype that you can consider running. The Eggy version is built around its 2-drop scalars. Goliath and Dazzler are often 2/8 or bigger here. Sam is a 2/6, but it also counts as 2 bodies for Blue Marvel and Spectrum, so those cards are all sort of what the deck is trying to do. Cosmo helps protect them. Enchantress is still common. Mobius says the few decks that can go over the top, like Negative, cannot because of Mobius. Kara protects your stones. The stones are not usually important, but here's what they do. They buff Dazzler and they buff Goliath. They fill lanes for Dazzler, and they make Goliath even bigger. Plus, there's things that can be buffed by Blue Marvel and Spectrum. Keeping them all safe is really good. A Mockingbird, if you've played Blue Marvel, is shongable. Kara protects that as well. Super Skrull says opponent on reveals or ongoings are not a real problem, which is really, really nice. It is also a solid answer to play against the against Mercury. If you play that in the Mercury lane, they cannot move. They cannot move the Mercury. Neither Super Skrull nor Mercury will move in that lane, which is a really powerful place to be. Wiccan is extra energy. Extra energy is great. Blue Marvel plays as a 5/14 if you fill up the whole board. That's huge. Spectrum is even bigger than that. 1 more energy, but more like 20 power. Again, absolutely huge. Mockingbird is a like 1 to free 9, like 3 to free 9, utterly insane. And Thanos is not different here than the previous deck, again, except now he also gives you stones that have ongoings and help you fill the board. So turn 1, Stone Draw over Ant-Man. Turn 2, Sam over Goliath over Draw. Turn 3, Mobius are early plays. You can Chimera. From here on, you Mockingbird as you can. Turn 4, Wiccan, or a combo of earlier plays. Turn 5, Blue Marvel over Thanos. If Wiccan, just go off. Turn 6, if you feel like you've got a 50-50 or better, you should probably snap, because your opponent doesn't know if you're going to drop Thanos, if you're going to drop Spectrum, if you're just going to drop like a Sam and Goliath, if you're going to drop a Blue Marvel and a Mockingbird. You have all that combo stuff that can lead you to snap, but you're going to have to read the board in order to know that. This list is a monster. People have mostly stopped playing both Thanos lists, but they're still really, really great. And if you want to win Marvel Snap games, this is probably where I'd start looking. Like, they're just easy to play and tons of points. Hey, come check out a stream at twitch.tv/PulseGlazer. It'd mean a lot if you stopped by. I plan to try to be alive around 3 p.m. Eastern today, so if you can make it, come hang out. Our Season Pass question. We are pseudo giving away a Season Pass right now. I'm not sure if we're giving away a Season Pass. Maybe we're giving out a PAX code instead. It is undecided. What is the best deck that I missed? Cool. I'm going to cover, by the end of this video, 16 decks. What is the best one I don't talk about? Sizer's Wolf Stuff is a list that Sizer has been playing and absolutely crushing with. This one is sort of built off the Devinter list, so huge props to Devinter for reaching the finals of the, not Devinter, Jakub, sorry, Team FAK members getting confused in my head. The Jakublevich deck, which he finished number 2 in the Golden Gauntlet. Sizer created a version of that that basically just runs Werewolf, because Werewolf is incredibly strong right now. This list is, Werewolf is obviously very vulnerable to Mercury. However, this deck runs Enchantress on Red Guardian, so it's got as good an answer for that as possible. You can find Sizer at twitch.tv/Sizer2654. This deck needs Surge, Gwenpool, Galacta, Werewolf, and Merlin. All of those are your required cards. Red Guardian can be Copycat or Gladiator. Kate can be Shadow King, and Loki can be Iceman or Spider-Hand. Alright, so Loki is here. There's a lot of good stuff decks around that are very powerful. When you can get good stuff decks early on the cheap, you do it. Zabu and Surge give you access to 4s for cheap. That is fundamentally their use here. Extra power from Surge is also fairly nice and unpredictable, but you're trying to get your like Galacta to be and Gwenpool to be playable early. Your Shang and Enchantress to be playable late, but in combination with other stuff. Kate Bishop gives you an option for a couple of extra on reveals and helps you fill your curve. Just a really, really effective card. Merlin is the same basic thing, except you have this Loki and Zabu that you don't mind getting rid of. Sometimes you're not going to have anything to do with Mobius. You could turn it into a 4-drop, stuff like that. Merlin's just a really good tool to have in your toolbox. Mobius does a good job at preventing a lot of decks from going over the top of you. Red Guardian is honestly here largely as a Mercury counter, but hey, there's plenty of things to hit from Iron Man and so on. Werewolf is your big points in this deck. It is the biggest points in this deck. Werewolf and Merlin have amazing synergy. We're going to hear about that multiple times. I'm not going to say it every time, but Werewolf and Merlin have excellent synergy, where you can use a Merlin spell to like fill a lane. It'll disappear, and then the Werewolf will move over. It's great. Power and ongoings must be controlled. We need to do something about how prominent Shangan Enchantress are in the meta, but they're in a ton of top decks right now. And Galactic and Gwenpool basically give you enough power to compete, especially if you don't have that Werewolf by night. So this is the first of several good stuff lists we're going to look at around the A tier. So when you want Zabu, usually over Loki. You can Loki, but it's hard to know to do that if you don't know any of what your opponent's playing. Turn 2, Surge over Merlin over Kate. Turn 3, Werewolf, who is a snap condition if you don't think they can stop it. Locations are favorable. Over Galactor or Gwenpool, who can also be snap conditions early. Over 2/1 over Mobius. Turn 3, Galactor or Gwenpool. Turn 5 and 6 are basically control cards and then cheap cards to move the Werewolf. If you feel like you can get enough value out of those control cards, particularly Red Guardian, Shang-Chi, Enchantress, then you can snap and win that game for extra cubes. Sizer has been crushing with this. This is one of the highest win rate lists in the game right now. Had to share it with you here. It's probably also going to get a feature in a regular video soon because I have not talked about this in one yet. If you're interested, please check out patreon.com/snapjudgments. It would mean the world. At the Patreon, we give you early access to all of our videos and so much more. Please check out patreon.com/snapjudgments. Next up, we've got Honifer's list. This is one of the current meta lists. This is another Werewolf Merlin list that has a lot of power. This one using the Sentry Annihilus package. Honifer, ignore the percentage there. That's from a previous video. That's what it was pre-Infinite, but it is now kicking butt post-Infinite. Honifer is a player who's often in the top 100 and has finished as high as rank 2 on the Infinite leaderboard. This deck needs Werewolf, Annie, and Merlin. Sam, Kate, and Surge can be any good one on reveal. Nico, Ham, Iceman, and Spider Ham, so on. If you'd like another version of this, please feel free to try Prof. Lucci's one. Prof. Lucci is another player who made the top cut at the first Golden Gauntlet. And this is more or less what he played in the second one. This is probably my favorite version. It's not as tested as the Honifer version. The Honifer version has a larger sample, but I do like this version a little bit better, for if all other things being equal. So this deck runs Yellow Jacket for several reasons. One, it's a free move for Werewolf, which is obviously very useful. The other thing this really does is it turns a Rock or Sam Shield into a negative power card, so it can be sent over by Annihilus. Hood can be sent over by Annihilus or Viper. Hood can also be very powerful with Merlin. You can use it to get extra energy or make it a 2-drop. Sam Shield has that synergy with Yellow Jacket, plus it's a 2/6, which is just good stats. You can also use it to fill the right lane for when you don't want the Void. Shadow King is just very useful right now. We're seeing a lot of Werewolf. We're seeing a lot of cards that can have their green power taken away. Shadow King is in decks. Surge gives you extra energy. There's nothing you're like super doing with Surge here. She's just best in slot. Kate gives you an extra clog card and some extra on reveals for Werewolf. Merlin, same thing as before. Werewolf, same thing as before. We talked about them in the last deck, but the logic between using these cards is the same. Viper is amazing right now, having an extra way to just send over the Void, the Hood, or any other card to get a clog. Once you've clogged people, it's usually really easy to win the game, and so Viper is great. Also, if you're sick of losing to Cerebro 2, please play this list, because Viper absolutely hilariously wrecks Cerebro 2. You just, you send, or Cerebro 3 or Cerebro 4, who cares? Any Cerebro Viper should wreck. Send them over a high cost card that is not of their number, and then you basically win, right? If you Viper over a Kate to Cerebro 2, Kate is eating all of those buffs, and now you win the game. Sentry is sending over the Void is incredibly powerful. Turning the Void into a 5-power card with Merlin is incredibly powerful. You have both options. And then Agamotto is here just sort of as like you want that like sort of mini clog that Agamotto gives you access to. Turning a bunch of cards into Sentries is really good, but the real one for this deck is Balthak for having a bunch of extra energy. Werewolf plus Merlin is good stuff too, now with Annie. Turn 1 is Hood. Remember not to play Yellow Jacket early. He's here for that Sam Shield. He's here for that move of Werewolf. Turn 2, Merlin or Sage, or better than Sand, which is equal to Gate. Turn 3, Werewolf, and Werewolf can be a snap. Be careful, obviously, if the locations are good, if you don't think they're running Mercury. Turn 4, there's no Enchantress here, there's no Red Guardian here, so you do have to be more confident with your Werewolf. That's why it's a green snap instead of a white snap. Turn 4 is Sentry. If you realize you're going to be able to do something cool with the Void, you can snap. If you don't think that they can fill, or if you can, instead of worrying about if they can fill for Sentry, if you can instead if you already have that Merlin spell that makes it a 5-drop, you can snap on that. Be a little careful. Turn 5, any Viper if Sentry is out, but you can still play Sentry in a 1-drop here if you have any for the next turn. Any Viper or combo stuff, Demon, Shadow King, and so on, is how you win from there. Very powerful list from our friend Honifer. I love Agamotto, and if you want to play this, I cannot urge you enough. Again, A-tier decks are still really, really great. Hey, I don't know if you know this, but I write articles on Marvel Snap Zone almost every day. Please do go check out Marvel Snap Zone. I think you will really enjoy the written pieces I produce, and we have all the best, well, not all, but we have much of the best writing around in Marvel Snap. Next up, we've got Stefan and Space's deck. This is Supergiant Roram. This version runs, you guessed it, Cannibal, Mercury, and Fenris Wolf. That package is everywhere. It's also running Negasonic and Gladiator. I could have counted this as the same as the first deck. I do think this version is a little worse, as there's like 4 or 5 different Supergiant versions, and no one's quite sure which of them is best yet. So as we figure out which is best, this could easily move up to S tier. Instead of doing replacements, although Stefan was last I checked ranked 10 with this, and Space reached the top almost the top 16 of the tournament with a similar idea. You can see an alt version from Rabbit Sweet. Rabbit Sweet reached top 8 with this in the recent Golden Gauntlet. It is a slightly different take on the list. It runs Wiccan and it runs Goliath, so if you need some mixes and matches, feel free. If the card is in both decks, the card is needed. All right. Echo is just a nice way to snipe ongoing cards. Sniping ongoings is important. This is a card that's largely added for this week because this week is the week of whatchamacallit, of Ancient One, and being able to stop that is good. Reminder, we'll have an Ancient One deck for you at the end of the video. Mercury here gives you the Cannonball combo. I'm not going to explain that 500 more ways, but Mercury, Cannonball, Fenris Wolf are a combo. We explained that in the very first deck of the video if you need to check that out. Daredevil lets you know what your opponent's going to do on turn 5, which is incredibly powerful with cards like Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Cosmo. If you do have Prio, and you can just blow up what they want to do on turn 5 with Negasonic, or you can Cosmo and shot stop it on reveal. Really good stuff. That obviously works best with Supergiant. Supergiant does a similar thing, except with Supergiant you're doing those kind of plays on turn 6, or hiding powerful plays on turn 5 like Ronin and Cannibal. We talked about Fenris. Maximus is largely meant to be played under Supergiant, though you can also end up playing it late with Negasonic or Cosmo for a lot of power. Sage is keyword big. Sage is really good after Supergiant because, well, everything else will be revealed there, and then Sage can pop up and give you a huge power spike. Cosmo and Negasonic are your control cards to be used with Daredevil and Supergiant. Gladiator is Negasonic also has synergy with Fenris Wolf, as does Gladiator. Those are your kill cards outside of Cannonball for the Wolf. Tons of power there. Supergiant ruins a ton of decks that really rely on turn 5. Ronin is keyword big right now. Everyone's running cards like you've probably seen 18 Kate Bishops and Merlins, right? So Ronin's really big, plus you have Maximus, so keep that in mind. And then, of course, we have the Cannonball. So this could end up a tier higher. I don't know. I'm bad with Supergiant, so maybe I'm not the one to judge. But if you're good with this, I could easily see this being a tier higher. This is harder to play than the other Cannonball Mercury lists. Turn 1 Echo, turn 2 Fenris equals Daredevil equals Mercury. It's going to depend what else you have. I tend to like to get Daredevil down, but if I know I'm going to play Supergiant, if I have Supergiant, I need Fenris and Mercury out before I Supergiant, right? Because getting them out after doesn't really do anything. Although it can, right? If I can throw a priority and play Mercury after Supergiant, and then I can, no, because then I'd have to play Mercury and Cannonball on 5, and that just doesn't work. Yeah, I was right the first time. I can play Mercury on 6, however, in a lane that I put Cannonball down on turn 5. Gladiator over Negasonic over Cosmo on 3. Turn 4 Supergiant, and if you can snap on that Supergiant, it's usually pretty damn powerful. If you can tell the opponent's going to suffer from missing turn 5. Turn 5, you want Negasonic and Gladiator plus Negasonic or Gladiator plus Fenris or Mercury, if not Supergiant. If Supergiant, you're looking for Cosmo, Negasonic, and Maximus, or you can just cold drop Ronin. You end the game with Cannonball or Ronin plus whatever else you can, and then you win because, I don't know, this list is disgusting. I remain fairly convinced the Supergiant buff was probably a mistake in the long run. The B tier. Our first deck in the B tier is the Havoc deck. This is a list that has altered fundamentally one card since it was created all those months ago by Derek. Merlin has been everything from U.S. Agent to Sam Wilson to Surge. For a while, I had Merlin over Kitty, but the higher win rate version runs Kitty and not Surge, so I decided to go with the higher win rate version. Burrs has kept this deck alive, playing a crap ton of it at the top of Infinite, and Derek originated the original version. The Havoc Enjoyer was Derek's name for quite a long time. This deck needs Nico, Thena, and Agent Venom. Sage can be Juggernaut or Cassie. Merlin can be Surge, Sam, or U.S. Agents. Merlin Havoc is card by card now. Sorry, just got an email. Merlin Havoc, card by card. So Hood is a card you don't necessarily want to play for -3. You can if you know you have Merlin, because you can then use that Hood for extra energy or to turn it into a 2-drop. Bast is a way to play the Hood as a 1/3, so it's +6 power from its base. That gives you a 1/6, and Agent Venom does the same thing. Bast's key targets are Hood, but the other things you really want to hit are Sage, Cassandra Nova, and Havoc. Hitting Thena is fine, but not as important as those other 3 zeros. Turning Cassandra Nova into 9 power card, Sage ends up being like 13 power, so on, and Havoc getting that extra 3 really does change the math in games. Kitty Pryde is a 1-drop that helps you trigger your Thena. That's fundamentally her use here. She gets a reasonable size fairly often, but you don't have to play her. Actually end up with her on the board specifically. Nico can turn that Hood into a demon, or turn Bast into a demon and use them to draw 2. Very, very useful card to have. The other really useful thing Nico does is it copies Cassandra Nova and Sage. Those cards will get their buff and then be copied. From there we have Havoc. Learning to play Havoc on turn 4 or turn 5 is the key to this deck. You play Havoc, he gets big, people don't count right, you win. If you've hit him with Bast or Agent Venom, it's even better. Even a play on turn 5 means he's a 2/11. Thena ends up being around a 2/9 to 2/12, so that's really, really powerful too. You have Kitty Pryde and you have Merlin to trigger Thena, because Merlin adds a 1-drop to your hand every turn, which gives you an extra card that you can either hold or choose to play with Thena as you so choose. Agent Venom is the biggest base stats in the list at 2/5, and is also a really great way to get that extra power on the aforementioned important cards type with Bast. Cassandra Nova is really, really big. Is really, really solidly big with Bast or Agent Venom, but if you can get that and copy it, now you've got a second really powerful card, and that really does help, because now all your opponent's cards that they draw are going to be very negative, so Cass is great for that. And generally, there's a decent amount of Arishem and Thanos still wander around, and Cass is great for those. Sage is another great card to copy with Nico's spell. It is your big finisher. Like all the other things that you play at the end sort of scale up, Sage pops up and then scales immediately. Cosmo protects your stuff. This deck is very weak to Shadow King, so you don't want to get hit by that, and it also is a card you can play. Advice: if you're not sure how your opponent can beat you in a lane, right, like you're ahead, but you know that they're likely to play there based on the board space, feel free to drop Cosmo in that lane. You're occasionally just going to steal a win that way. Red Guardian is your answer card, just says shut up and win. So this is the most underrated deck in Snap. This probably belongs in A tier, but no one's playing it right now. Turn 1, Kitty, and then remember to hold Bast until you have at least a couple good targets. Turn 2, Agent Venom over Merlin over 1s over Thena. Turn 3, Thena in 1 is your goal, or Cass. What you'd like to do turn 4 is Cass in 1, but you can also 2/2, especially if you need to get Havoc out early. You're going to have to practice. Again, there's no heuristic I know of for when to Havoc on 4, but I know there are times when it is beneficial for you to play Havoc on 4. Sage or Cosmo and Havoc or 1 is the next play here for you, and then turn 6 is the same as 5. This list is a beauty. I love this list. It's one of my favorite things to play in Snap. It might even be coming up on being nearly as fun as Bounce. Hey, if you're interested, my wife has a Instagram. It's called The Crystal Bee, TheCrystalBee21. If you want to check it out and buy some handcrafted beautiful jewelry, go check it out. It would really help us out as a family, as big things may be happening for us. Next up, we got Ika Scream. This is the Scream list that Ika has created. It shouldn't be this good. There should be other Scream lists that are better, particularly the Carnival Mercury ones. And you can fairly easily fit Mercury in for Cassandra Nova, but most parts of the ladder, I'm told, not at high infinite, but most parts of the ladder, I'm told, are still inundated with Arishem lists, and having Cassandra Nova and Darkhawk turns those into easy wins. Thus, this is one of the higher win rate decks at high infinite. I told you Ika would be back, and you can find him at twitch.tv/EKMTS. Scream, Sam, and Darkhawk are required. Cass can be Mercury, or plenty of other cards, to be perfectly honest. You can run some extra control cards. You can run a Silk in that spot. You can find what you need to do. You can run a Batrock. So, alright, so Korg puts a rock in the deck, which is good for Darkhawk. It is also really good if the opponent draws the damn rock. Scream remains a 4 power scalar. I thought Scream was going to make the list, and when I did my work preparing, this Scream felt like it had to be there because it's just too strong. It gets too big. Sam and Craven are this wonderful package where you can get a buff every turn from them, or you can get +4 in a lane every time you move the shield over. It's great stuff. Spider-Man helps with 2 things. It helps you clog with Polaris, missing through your opponent's plaything. It also makes Miles cheaper and can buff Craven. All around, really, really great card. Also hits Scream. Cassandra is here largely for that Arishem matchup, but if you're putting rocks in the opponent's deck, Cassandra is reasonably big. Even if you play her on turn 5 after a Korg and a Rock Slide, that is reasonably big and useful. Juggernaut lets you win a lane on game on the cheap. Polaris helps you clog while triggering Scream and or Craven and or Miles. Rock Slide is rocks are annoying to the opponent and make Darkhawk big. Miles gives you a 1/6 to play, which you'd like to play at the end of the game with either Darkhawk or Cannonball. Darkhawk is big. Cannonball wins lanes. Alright, you can do a Cannonball Mercury version of Scream as well without Darkhawk, but that version doesn't have quite the stats in the current meta. Turn 1 Korg, turn 2 Scream equals Sam over Craven. If you have Craven, you want to get Sam down as soon as possible. You can wait for Scream until turn 4. Turn 3 Polaris, cast or 2, depends what's in hand, right? Turn 4, you generally want a 2/2 over Rock Slide, although if you have Darkhawk and not Cannonball, you could still play Rock Slide to make sure your Darkhawk is good. Turn 5, Darkhawk, or you can do Jug Polaris +2. Then turn 6 is generally Cannonball or Darkhawk plus Miles. Once in a while, you're going to go with Juggernaut plus, like a Polaris at the end of the game, Juggernaut plus a Cassandra if you put a bunch of rocks in their deck. But this list is really, really cool, and not enough people are playing it. If you're frustrated by Arishem, play it and turn it into an easy win. If you're looking to get into content creation, I know a lot of my viewers are, please check out my friend BitTwiddle, who does all the thumbnails and graphics on this channel. Contact information is right on the screen, as is the pricing. I believe this is the last on our list proper. Zenaid Sauron is still stick. As soon as Zenaid is the only level 30 Sauron Mastery player I know, and he created this list that is still all over the place and still sort of kicks ass. It just puts up numbers that are really hard to deal with. You can find Zenaid at twitch.tv/ZenaidTFT. Apparently used to play Teamfight Tactics. Who knew? This needs Scar, Starbrand, and Surge. Cull or Ares can be Crossbones or Maul. Starbrand can be, sorry, not Starbrand. I need to fix that one. Surtur can be Juggernaut or Shadow King. As now this video is getting long, it is getting late. Zabu and Surge make your forest cheaper, and having access to cheaper forests is really good. The other card you really want to make cheaper is Enchantress, so you can play it in the end of the game with as much as possible. Sometimes you can get Zabu and Surge to get a 2-cost Enchantress with a 1-cost Scar, and now you can still do some real work because now maybe you got lucky, you got like a 3-cost Cull or Ares, or you have a Starbrand to play. Wild stuff there. Zero is sorry. Sauron is the way to make Typhoid, Red Skull, and Starbrand not negative. You are only running 3 negative things due to the change to Starbrand. Zero is sort of your backup Sauron here. It's an extra way to get that benefit. Surge, we talked about. Surtur ends up like a 3/13, but he's not big enough to discount Scar, so keep that in mind. Starbrand you almost never want to play while the negative is out, but Zero, Sauron, and Enchantress solve that. Pro tip, if you can zero Typhoid or Red Skull, you can play the other 2 cards, the Starbrand. Let's say you zero Red Skull, right? You can keep Starbrand and Typhoid in the same lane and then play Enchantress on them later. Although you don't want to keep those from the same lane. I guess Typhoid would be the one you'd have to play alone, and then you can play Red Skull and Starbrand to do that. Ares is a 4/12. 4/12 most of the time for this list, that's really powerful because that's Magneto stats on a 4-drop. Enchantress is good here. It messes up a lot of decks while also helping your Typhoid, Red Skull, and Starbrand. You run 3 1s, and running 3 1s, Cull Obsidian makes sense as a deck card to run since it's a 4/10. Typhoid is a 4/10. She is often the most damaging of the 4/10s, though. Oh, sorry, of the 10 power cards. So make sure you have Sauron, Zero, or Enchantress for her. Red Skull is keyword big. Keyword big is good. It is one of the biggest cards in the game. And then Scar should be either 3 or 1 by the end of the game. And then you have that to drop with ideally Enchantress and to win the game of Snap. Alright, so this is the B tier list that might belong in tier A most of all. Turn 1 Sauron or Zabu, it's hand dependent. If you've drawn your Sauron cards, you play Zabu. If you haven't drawn your Sauron cards, you play Sauron. Turn 2 Surge equals Sauron over Zabu. 0 is fine if Starbrand is coming up next. Turn 3, you would like to play a 4 or a 0 Starbrand or Surtur. Turn 4, we've got Ares, which is equal to Cull over Mary. Turn 5, Red Skull or 4+1. This is a good turn to go like 0 plus Typhoid. Works out really well. Once in a while, you're going to need to Enchantress a little early. Turn 6, Scar and a big, or Scar and Enchantress, and then you usually win. This just puts up too much points. This is the points deck. This is the points police of the meta. Weekend missions, we only have one weekend missions card. It's the Ancient One. I do not urge you to get the Ancient One. I think this card is largely bad. It needs an OTA buff, making the Damandala cheaper, or making the Ancient One herself cheaper. One of the two must happen for this to be a good card. However, the winningest deck with this card is Ika's best Ancient One, which we covered yesterday. I am going to go through this relatively quickly, because yesterday's video did this one at great length. You can find Ika at twitch.tv/Ika_MTS. This deck needs Infinity Ultron, Misery, Surge, and Victoria Hand. Frigga, Ancient One, Cassandra Nova, Moonstone, Luna, and Sage. Think about the roles each of those cards fill to figure out how they replace each one. Gorgon can be Shadow King, Iron Patriot, or Gate Bishop. I'm partial to Gate Bishop, but again, Arishem Thanos, especially on the Euro server where Ika plays. And then Nico can be Maria Hill. Alright, there's only one real way to get rid of Hood here. I guess Nico's a pseudo way. It's Misery, so you really want to Hood Misery so you can get some really good demons. Nico's here largely to take care of that Hood, but she's also really good to turn like a Mirage into a demon, or use it to draw, or get a copy of Victoria Hand or Cassandra Nova. Quinjet makes some of the cards you copy cheaper, and it's incredibly important, particularly for Infinity Ultron. Those stones at 1 is awesome. Mirage gives you an extra power card. Surge makes stuff cheaper, which is generally good, because the Damandala thing makes this deck quite expensive. Gorgon messes with Thanos and Arishem. Victoria Hand is a card you really want to either buff or copy, hence the friggin' Ancient One, and thus can win games. Cass is here as a sort of panacea to Arishem, but it's also a good card to copy with Frigga. Ancient One can give you up to 3 Victoria Hands in one lane, which is really nice if your opponent doesn't have Enchantress. Misery is here to A, clear space, and B, give you multiple demons, because demons are probably the best Victoria Hand card. And then Infinity Ultron really sings in this list. 1 cost stones, and he is a lane winner. So this is the highest win rate Ancient One deck right now. Turn 1, Quinjet over Hood. Turn 2, Hand over Surge. Turn 3, Frigga the Victoria Hand, or whatever. Ancient One or Cass are fine. Turn 4, Frigga Cass, or Misery on Hood. You can also once in a while 2/2. Turn 5, generate cards. Infinity Ultron is usually how you'd like to do that, but sometimes you must do other things, like drop a Misery with a Hood, and so on. You can also play Victoria Hand and Frigga them together right here just fine. Turn 6, play the Infinity Ultron Stones, Hand, and Demons, or a Dow, and you'll be fine. This one is a very kick-butt list, and if you do decide to get Ancient One against my wishes, then please play this. Question of the day is always honorable mention. Our first honorable mention is the Cerebro 2. I think Cerebro 2 struggles just enough into the current meta to be sort of pulled down. It is still a very strong list. It would be in the B tier. Basically, the honorable mention are other B tier decks. I tried to make the B tier decks ones that are interesting rather than just known archetypes, so this is a good spot to shove those known archetypes, which is Cerebro 2. Speaking of known archetypes, Bullseye is in a reasonably good place. There's some Mobius, but not too much Mobius. There's some Cosmo, but not too much Cosmo, so this list has come back in a reasonably big way. Again, it's a known archetype that we've covered on the channel at least 10 different times, but it is a B tier deck right now. Speaking of B, this is Heart of the Cards, Merlin Surfer. If there's one deck I'm wrong on that doesn't actually belong in the B tier, it's this. I still am partial to Surfer. I'm not sure this is the right build. Surfer needs a little bit more work, but this one is close to cooking. And finally, we have the very well-known Roar and Plays Cougar list. This one there's a few different versions, but this one's basic job is to give yourself an end-of-game free Ajax, Abomination, and Miles Morales. Again, we've covered this deck for months at this point. I think it is still in B tier. I can see it getting up to A, but the hazmat change really does hurt this kind of list. Finally, we have Negative. Again, Negative is a B tier list. There's just enough Mobius to keep it in check. Negative is still, however, an insanely and absurdly powerful list in Marvel Snap. One that I urge you to play if you're good at snapping and retreating, play Negative and you're just going to gain rank. Patreon.com/snapjudgments is the place you can find me later. Before we read a bunch of Patreon names, though, I want to remind you that there is that second High Voltage Overdrive interview video coming later. I don't want you to miss it. So there's certain tier support on Patreon. Come with on there. Thanks. I'm going to say thank you to Bricks to Click, Abigail Gleason, Mentor Burnett, It Regardless, LAB, Inc., Iron Frostman, Hotet Navarrete, Primed Ryan Burke, Ryan Woodsnap, Ren Wrench, Caretaker, Corey, Kazushi, Archangel 3K, Black Dahlia, Profrost, The Goat Seeker, Code, Hollowed, Only Fox, Synth, Fat Dick, Absolute Shannon, Nightmare, Dirty Casual, Mr. Kerfuffle, Cables, Ginger Prime, Philip Rakovich, Haplo, Kenny Loggins of the Danger Zone, The Bizza, Black Sheep is 23, Express V and Skippy G, Rhyming Friends, Jessica Gamble, Mr. Slush Death, The King of Bros, The Great Kazoo, Werewolf, Kepsi Hoda, Ludacris dropped. Ket Glam, Colonel Forbin, Rob Silverman, David G. Wingfield, Stephen, Brian Kaufman, Tristan H. Martin, Jason B., Mr. Greg Sterry, Matt V., Corey, Corwin, John Q, and Jimmy McQ, Q Town, Hist Out, A Sage, One Big Man, Bookman for Reals, Cactus Jack, Reapser, BG, Yo Marco, Good Pro Joe, Snap to Citizens Joe, Dick Carlo, Models Mod Supreme, Pikita Boom Bot, Green Goblin, Unibot V2, Flam 56, Leaf Has Lount, Spectrumix, Woot, Acu Ocularis, Matt H, DJ McHijinks, No Friggin' Flex, Nick the Geeky, Toxic Soul King, Zodrex, the King of Canada, JJ, Denman Falcon, Father Newman, Jonesy Snapped, Two Ties for the 4th of July's, the great and married Lauren Whatevs, the Pirate King Tucker, and of course Gunny T, where the T stands for. That's all, folks. Don't forget, second video later. I'll see you for that, and then hopefully on stream, we gonna hang out today. Peace.